Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, all of that and birthday stuff. It's my April wrap up. I had to think about what month it was there for a second, you may have noticed, which is bizarre because today I'm filming this on the 30th of April, which is my birthday. So it's very bizarre that I had a momentary brain fart and couldn't remember what month it was. Anyway, so I have got a big stack of books. Well, I've got two big stacks of books in front of me, actually. So the first is the stack of books that I have read this month, which I'm going to talk through from least favourite to most favourite. And then also, I've got a big stack of books in front of me that I've received as birthday gifts, but I'm not going to show you those today. I'm going to film, after this, I'm going to film a book haul video, because I've also got behind me some books I've picked up over the last week or so. So yeah, I'm going to do a book haul video, which will go up on Monday. So it being end of the week and end of the month, this is a combined weekly wrap-up and monthly wrap-up video. I'm trying to think what I've read in the last week, and my mind's gone completely blank now, so I can't remember. So I'll just go through the monthly element of it. So I'm going to go through all the books I've read, and then I'll do a bit of kind of channel-y stuff at the end, let you know what's coming up in the week ahead, and what you might have missed in the last week. So, right, without further ado, let's crack on. So, my least favourite book of the month, it pains me to say, was Watership Down by Richard Adams. So this was the first book that we've read in the Birth Year Favourites read along. I need to come up with a proper name for this book group, because every time I refer to it, I feel like I call it something slightly different. Anyway, yeah, this was the first of the books that were chosen by booktubers as their favourite birth year book that we've talked about, and a number of people got involved in the read along, and we had a bit of a chat about it on my Discord. But yeah, I didn't really like it, basically. I thought it was too long, and I just found it really confusing. I found it very difficult to tell the difference between all the different characters. And I don't know if this is, I was thinking about this afterwards, I don't know if it's like, when you read a book, you kind of build up a mental picture of the character in your mind, and that, I think, helps you to distinguish between them when you are, reading books with multiple characters in the picture I had in my mind of all these characters is they all look like rabbits, so it was quite difficult to tell them apart. So yeah, a much loved book clearly, but sadly not one I enjoyed. Next up, this probably deserves to be a little bit higher, but I've ranked it low because I was quite disappointed by it, is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, which loads of people have raved about, and there are bits of it which are fantastic. Sorry, my nose squeaked a bit there, so I'm still suffering with this sinus infection. And someone at the door. Right, I'm back. Sorry, it's someone at the door with birthday stuff, so I shouldn't complain, really. So, the Kaiju Preservation Society. So, the premise of this book is fantastic, and it's really witty and amusing and enjoyable as well. So the premise is set during the COVID pandemic, which was interesting as well. And it's about a guy who works for like a food delivery company, who gets made redundant. So he's like, works on the app kind of thing, gets made redundant and ends up being a deliverer for them, or deliverator as they call them in the book. And then meets someone who he used to know, who tells him he works for this, it basically offers him a job with this company, which is called the Kaiju Preservation Society. And what they do is they basically make sure monsters like Godzilla can mate and exist and stuff like that. So it's a really, really fun concept, and I think I would be very surprised if someone doesn't make a movie of this, because it's such a neat concept, and it was the first half of it is really, really enjoyable. The problem comes in the second half when the kind of plot kicks in, and also I would say there's some great ideas in this book. So the way he does the ideas and things like that, I thought was fantastic as well. But when the actual plot kicks in, it's just a really boring plot. It just felt very obvious. It felt like a photocopy plot of a million different things. It felt like the plot of a kind of not great B movie that's ripping off another movie. It had all the kind of standard elements that you would expect to have in a book like this, and as a result I just found it a bit disappointing. So brilliant first half, but very disappointing second half. So overall, I wasn't a huge fan, I have to say. Next up, Nick Carter. So this was a book I found in a charity shop, which I hadn't mentioned on the channel before. So it's a dime novel from 1886, I think it was. Yeah, 1886, about a detective, Nick Carter, investigating the murder of a singer, I think it is. So yeah, just a really enjoyable vintage throwaway mystery story. I thought it was great. Next up, one that I bought for June on the Range and then couldn't resist reading early. So The Empty Land by Louis L'Amour. So this is a western from, where's it from? 1969. So just an enjoyable western. So set in kind of Gold Rush era. And features a kind of a small town that's grown up because of the Gold Rush, and various problems that happen there, and gunfights and all that good Western stuff. So yeah, that was enjoyable. Next up, Blood Run by George G. Gilman. So the next book in the Edge series that I'm reading. So this is book 15. So this was pretty standard Edge stuff. Nothing really to set it apart from other entries in the series, but an enjoyably brutal 70s Western. Slightly ahead of that, Hunters of Gore, the 8th Gore book by John Norman. So the 7th book was the one that was a bit different, so it took a slightly different path, had a different narrator and things like that. This one goes back to the main character as narrator. It's much more about the kind of slavery side of things than the other books have been. So there was very little kind of the proper like fancy adventure type stuff that the first few books did so well. But it's still readable and kind of enjoyable in its own way, as repugnant as the central premise might be. Next up, The Executioner, California Hit by Don Pendleton. So this one has the Executioner in San Francisco, teaming up with an Asian American kind of federal agent and going up against a mixture of the mob and the Chinese gangs. So yeah, another very enjoyable entry in the Executioner series. Right, next up then is The Stainless Steel Rat by Harry Harrison. So this is a reread for me of a book I read years ago as a teenager. So I read a few of these books back then. So this is just a very silly but very enjoyable sci-fi adventure about this guy, Slippery Jim Degree, he's called, who is a criminal who gets recruited to work in this kind of top secret agency and goes on missions and stuff like that. So it's entirely silly and throwaway, but really enjoyable. Next up, a short story collection, Death of a Bad Neighbour, edited by Jack Calverley, which I talked about a while ago in the weekly wrap-up for the week I read this. So this was just a really good, solid collection of crime short stories, all themed around neighbours. So a really good central theme and tons of different types of stories in there. I don't think there were really any two stories that were that similar. So you get stories that are kind of comedic. So there's one, for example, set in kind of caveman days, which was very silly but quite enjoyable. And then a few quite different ones. A couple of really excellent stories in here. And, lots of stories of revenge and things like that. So a very enjoyable read. Next, we've got The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates. So the first of her Gravekeeper series. So I read this one on Kindle. So I've been meaning to read Darcy Coates for a while to see what the fuss was about. And this was just really fun. So, people term her as cozy horror, and I can see why. It was just a very pleasant book to read. Really well-drawn characters, slightly cliched, but well done, who interact, really interestingly with each other. So interesting relationships and things like that going on. The central kind of premise is about this woman who's lost her memory, but knows she's on the run from some bad guys and can also see ghosts. So it's about her trying to figure out what's happened to her in the past and also get kind of resolution for these ghosts that she interacts with. So yeah, just a very slight and I guess quite silly but fluffy and entertaining and kind of sweet horror novel. Right, next up, a bit more survivalist. So number 6 in the survivalist series by Jerry Ahern, The Savage Horde, which is just really good again. He's so good at juggling different storylines together to keep you interested and keep the book exciting. So this one has got it's got so much going on in it. So you can see there's a submarine on the cover. So large parts of the book are set on the submarine. John Rourke, who's the survivalist hero, is also a doctor. So there's some surgery scenes in this book which are really, really gripping. You've got a love triangle going on. You've got John Rourke's wife who's separated from him, you know, with the kids away, getting attacked by a gang of bikers and trying to survive them. You've got kind of interplay between the invading Soviets and the kind of American resistance. It's just got a bit of everything. It's just pure pulp fun. Next up then, Autumn Gothic by Brian Bowyer. So I am going to try and do a separate review of this. It's just an absolute blast. So I'd only read short story collections by Brian before, but he very kindly sent me a copy of this novel which has come out recently. It's just such good fun. So a bit like The Survivalist, but really in that it juggles loads of different things but does it really well. So there's a bunch of different characters. You've got about 3 or 4 storylines going on at the same time. And basically all of them converge on this weird kind of haunted house in West Virginia. It's a really hard book to describe. And I'll be interested to see how my review of it goes, because there's just so much going on in it and so much weird stuff that I think it might be quite a difficult book to review. But I really, really enjoyed it. It's incredibly bleak and incredibly violent and incredibly weird and gross, and I loved it. Okay, next up then is Piranesi by Susannah Clarke, which I read for my work book club, which is about this strange character who is trapped in a weird world which is a bit kind of like a museum or a library or something like that. It's really difficult to describe. But it all comes together beautifully at the end. It's a really interesting fantasy. I thought it was beautifully done. Next up, Come Closer by Sara Gran. So a bit of possession horror. So I love this. I've done a review of this, which is up on the channel already. A really dark, enjoyable horror story that keeps you guessing and does that thing brilliantly. Of you don't really know if the events in the book, the supernatural events in the book, are really happening, or if they're in the imagination of the narrator. So I really, really enjoyed that. Next up, another one which I don't have a physical copy of here because I read it in a copy I got from the library, which has gone back to the library. That was Jack of Spades by Joyce Carole. So a really interesting and enjoyable psychological thriller, kind of in the vein of The Dark Half by Stephen King, in that it's about an author who has a pseudonym who writes much darker, more violent, more trashy books than his normal books, and that persona kind of starts taking over a bit, but goes in completely different directions to The Dark Half. Much more, as I say, of a psychological thriller rather than anything supernatural, and it was just really gripping, really gripping. I couldn't stop turning the pages of it. Brilliantly done. I need to read more Joyce Carole. Next up, one that was recommended by Michael Romeo Talks Books, Cape Fear, or rather The Executioners. So the actual name of the book is The Executioners, but has been filmed twice as Cape Fear by John D. MacDonald. So I'm a big fan of of John D. MacDonald's Travis McGee series, which is about a kind of beach bum detective. This is completely different. This is just a pure suspense novel, absolutely fantastically done, about this guy who helped put away, when he was serving in the army, a guy who was a rapist, and the guy, many years later, the guy's now got out of prison and comes after this the hero of the book and his family, and it's just about them trying to escape and evade violence at the hands of this psycho. So yeah, a really tense and enjoyable suspense novel. Similarly, another tense and very enjoyable suspense novel, which again I think I'll probably try and do a review of this. So this was sent to me very kindly by Wyatt Plagued by Visions some time ago, as was Come Closer. So this is not really what I was expecting. You think of Jack Ketchum as being like a full-on horror writer, and this was much more of a kind of crime suspense novel, but it was so good. And it I think the movie John Wick owes a debt to this, in that it's about a guy whose wife is dead, and a gang of hoodlums basically kill his dog. And it's about what happens after that. And it starts out fairly, that killing of the dog happens right near the start of the book. And it starts fairly gently almost in him trying to get them to admit responsibility for it. So they're like teenagers basically. And it just gradually ramps up from there to a all the way along that the ending's going to be violent, and it is. But oh god, it was so gripping, really, really good, and a really interesting character study of the main guy as well. Next up then, so this is my second favourite book of the month, The Postman Always Rings Twice by James M Cain. I did a review of this which went up on the channel during the week, so I won't talk too long about it, but a fantastically bleak noir novel from the 1930s, really dark, really gripping, really shocking in its kind of depiction of male-female relationships and, people conspiring to murder, and just really, really good. I absolutely loved it. I struggled this month to decide what should be my number one book for the month, but the book I'm going to go with for the number one slot was House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, just because it was such a fascinating book in the way it was constructed. So I have done a review of that, which I'll try and remember to link to in the description for this. But just a fascinating book, really weird. So I don't have a physical copy of it because I got it out of the library. But yeah, a very, very strange book, told in a completely unique way. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. I won't say more than that, but watch the review if you're interested in hearing more about it. So I've also been reading this book during the month, The Locked Room Mysteries, edited by Otto Penzler. Which is just fantastic. So a series of classic mysteries. I think I've read another 2 since I talked last week. So those 2 were, I'm just double checking on here what they were. So they were 2 Bottles of Relish by Lord Dunsany, and A Terribly Strange Bed by Wilkie Collins. So the Wilkie Collins one was really interesting in that it was kind of a locked room mystery that wasn't a locked room mystery, in that the victim of the crime actually survives it, and it's about him. It's about how he survives it. So you don't actually get the mystery because he explains what's going on, as you go. But had he died, it would have been a locked room mystery. So it's about this kind of ingenious murder technique, shall we say. So that was really good. And then the other one, 2 Bottles of Relish by Lord Dunsany, was just brilliant. So it's about these 2 guys. So the narrator is a guy who sells relish. So he sells, like this condiment for this company he works for, and travels around the country doing it. And one of his, I think it's like a co-worker of his, is really, really intelligent. And there's this murder that's happened, well, rather a disappearance that's happened recently, nearby where they happen to be at the time. And the narrator kind of challenges this other guy to try and solve the murder or the disappearance, which the police haven't been able to. And it was just a delight. It was so well done, and the final twist at the end was absolutely priceless. If you've read it, do let me know in the comments what you thought of it, without spoiling it for people. But I thought it was just great. It reminded me a lot of some of the adult short stories by Roald Dahl. I just thought it was brilliant. Really loved it. So I'm very much enjoying this collection at the moment, the Locked Room Mysteries. I'm trying to kind of read a bit of one each night before turning in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more. I think there's over 50 stories in this, so got a ways to go. And then a book I forgot to mention in my TBR video, which went up yesterday for May, is this, The MD by Thomas M Disch. So I write reviews, as I mentioned on the channel before, for a website called Leviathan Libraries. And one of the series of reviews I've been involved in is reviews of books that were nominated for the Stoker Awards, the horror awards. And we're doing one book that was nominated each year from the year the award started. So I've already done reviews for, what did I do? I did Funland by Richard Laymon, and I can't remember the first one. It was a vampire book. I've completely forgotten. Oh, Live Girls by Ray Garton. both of which I quite enjoy. Actually, Funland I didn't enjoy, but Live Girls I quite enjoyed. So I've done reviews for those two. And the person who was supposed to be doing the review for this month isn't able to do it anymore. So I said, oh, it's fine, I'll do it, and ordered a copy of this, not realising quite how big it is. So it's over 500 pages. So I need to get this read quickly, and so I can get the review done in time. I think it needs to go up on the 10th or something like that. I forgot to say, Crystal from Fibre Artsy has also done one of the reviews. So she did a review last month for Geek Love, which was a fantastic review. So I will link to that as well. But yeah, this is one of those books I was kind of aware of but had never read. So it's from the early 90s, but it's really, really good. I started it yesterday and I'm already 165 pages in. So yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm very glad that I got the opportunity to read it, because it's something I would never have thought of reading otherwise. So yeah, very much enjoying that. Yes, so channel stuff then. So what's been up in the last week? So I had my review of The Postman Always Rings Twice. I did a book tag. I did the Picture This book tag, which was quite fun to do, which is kind of themed around children's picture books. I did a horror library tour, which has done really well actually. I think the algorithm hooked into it for some reason, so it got some extra viewers. So if you're someone who's subscribed to the channel after watching that video, hello. Thank you very much for subscribing. I hope you enjoyed this video, other things you might have seen on the channel. So yeah, I did both of those. So that's really what I've done in the last week. In the week ahead, I will do a review of probably Autumn Gothic, maybe you've read, so that will come up in the next week or so. As I said, I'm going to do a birthday book haul video, which will go up on Monday, and I'm going to do my Sunday Bollocks video. I actually know what I'm going to do it about, so I'm going to do a response video to the two videos that Michael K. Vaughan and Steve Donoghue have done on ebooks. So I'm going to do a video on that for Sunday Bollocks tomorrow, and I'll probably try and do a library tour on Wednesday as well, get another box down from the attic, and go through that. So anyway, hope you're having a lovely weekend. It's nice and sunny here. I've mowed the lawns and done a couple of other chores this morning, so I can have a nice bookish afternoon reading a bit more of the MD. Yes, and then had a nice birthday pizza last night. So my wife's working today, so we celebrated yesterday evening. So a nice pizza from a local pizzeria yesterday, and we'll be maybe getting a takeaway KFC or something like that with my son for lunch today. So yeah, looking forward to a nice chilled out weekend reading. But yeah, do let me know what you're up to. Let me know what you're reading. And as always, thanks for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.